Welcome to Analysis with me, John Rees. It's been 3 years since the Syrian civil war began. Initially, Syrians took to the streets to protest against the regime of their president, Bashar al-Assad. But the revolution became a civil war, and since 2011, over 150,000 have died and millions more have been displaced. Last week, the government successfully took control of Homs, a key rebel stronghold. So what does this gain mean for Assad and the Syrian government? How will the West react to pleas for help from the rebels? And how will it affect the up-and-coming elections? With me in the studio is Abdulaziz Al-Mashi, who's co-founder of the Syrian Solidarity Movement, political commentator Dr. Khalid Abdul Fikri, and on Skype, Renaud Leanders, who's reader in international politics and Middle East studies at King's College London. Welcome to you all. But first, let's look at this report.
Thousands of Syrians have been allowed to return to Homs after 3 years of fighting and destruction. It's the city where Syria's civil war began, and one of the first places where protesters took up arms against government forces. Having been a keen rebel stronghold in the war, government forces successfully recaptured the city after 3 years of intensive fighting. The return of civilians to the city means that, in theory, that fighting shouldn't take place there anymore. Rebel forces were offered safe passage out of Homs in a ceasefire deal negotiated with the government, in which they were allowed to bring their weapons with them. According to the governor of Homs, Talal Barazi, the agreement was made that Syrian families could return to their homes.
There is complete respect for the ceasefire according to the agreement that was accomplished between both parties. Also, there is a real ease by God and Syrians to make these attempts reach their goals.
Syria's official opposition, meanwhile, claims that losing Homs was down to a lack of support from the outside world. In a press conference held last week, the leader of the Syrian National Coalition renewed requests from the West for weapons to fight against Assad's air force.
We do commit, and again, we do not want lots of weapons in an unorganised way. But we need effective, efficient weapons that would be in the right hands. The hands that we know, the hands of professionals.
Since the civil war started in 2011, more than 150,000 people have been killed, while millions more have been displaced as refugees. While fighting is still expected to continue, taking Homs is likely to be a huge victory for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. In recapturing one of the country's biggest urban areas, he's attempted to show that both Syrians and the world that he's winning the war. And as he prepares to secure another term in office, that victory will go far in consolidating his re-election chances. Hussein Kizvani.
Okay, so just let me ask you first of all, Abdulaziz, what significance do you think it has that the fact that the government's taken Homs?
First of all, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the brave fighters of Homs who have been fighting for our freedom, dignity and justice. And in fact, Homs didn't fail. It was the conscience of the international community who was
Sorry, are you saying that the Syrian government hasn't taken Homs?
No, it has taken Homs.
Okay, and what's your assessment of what that means in terms of the balance of forces in the Syrian civil war?
Well, this is a strong message to the international community that the Syrian people start their revolution to overcome a dictatorial regime, and the opposition forces have made many advances for the past three years. Now, unfortunately, the FSA and the opposition forces have been abandoned by the international community, and the opposition forces now started to lose the achievement they have made for the past 3 years. The fact is, if the international community don't intervene now by providing the opposition with arms, we will see other cities to be regained by Assad forces, and we will see the revolution to be finished. And this will be not. There will be a tragic consequences not only on Syria if Assad wins the war, but on the whole world, because other dictators in other countries will take Assad as an example and will follow his footsteps to crush any democratic movements in their own countries.
Dr. Fikri, do you think it's likely that now the West will intervene, or do you think that what's going to happen is that the Assad regime is going to be victorious now?
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Really, I don't think the Western will intervene. there was a lot of massacres, there was a lot of scandals, and always the Western is just looking and observing from outside. We remember last year when there was the chemical weapons and the scandal all over the world. Obama threatened, and it was just at the end of the day that he withdrew and nothing happened. I can say very clearly that the Western is having a double standard. They are hypocritical in their way of dealing with this massacre. The revolution in Syria is completely by the own Syrian people. They now trying to turn it to be an extremist and jihadist.
Are you saying that there's no outside help coming to?
Very weak, very weak. You can see the difference what happened in Ukraine and how all the Western are gathered. There are a lot of talks and a lot of support, and how many were killed in Ukraine. And look to the big difference. I would like to also to correct the figure.
Some people would say it's the same. They're not intervening in either case.
No, but the pressure now regarding Ukraine, the real threat to Russia, and as well as the way the American and the Western dealing with the matter of Ukraine is completely different. Now Syria are in crisis for 3 years and 2 months. And the second point is that the Syrian now become as a matter of confusion for the people. They said whoever is fighting in Syria is a terrorist. There is a jihadist. It is a matter of, and I found that even the policy here, the British policy, have been changed towards the conflict in Syria. Why we are blaming the people? Those who are fighting in Syria.
Let's come back to some of those issues. Let me ask Dr. Leanders first. How do you see the fall of Homs? Do you think this is a decisive moment in the history of the civil war?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, perhaps not a decisive moment, but certainly a very important one. First of all, we should realize that Homs is a central hub in Syria. When you retake Homs, it basically means that you have access from Damascus way up to Aleppo. And also via Homs, you can much more easily control the Lebanese-Syrian border to prevent any arms supplies and coming and going of rebel forces crossing the Lebanese border. And from Homs also, it will be much easier to start defending from a regime's perspective, the coastline. So yes, by all means, it's a major step and a major boost for the regime forces in its struggle against the rebels.
Abdulaziz, talking about how we got here, I mean, it's okay, you can blame the West, but the truth of the matter is that the British government didn't intervene because the majority of people didn't want to intervene in this country. They thought that the intervention in Afghanistan made things worse. They thought the intervention in Iraq made things worse. And they thought the intervention in Syria would make things worse.
Well, I do believe maybe the intervention in my country will make things worse. But the thing is, intervention, it doesn't have to be military intervention. We are not asking the British government to send their troops and their sons to go and fight our battles in Syria.
That was what they were planning. They were planning a cruise missile attack on Damascus, on Homs, on Aleppo. That was the plan. The ships were in place. It was ready. If there hadn't been that vote last August in the House of Parliament, that's what would have happened.
Okay, let us look at the situation in Syria. In Syria, we have intervened from the outsider. I mean, the Russians, the Iranian, the militia of Hezbollah from Lebanon, and even militias from Iraq are fighting in Syria.
And Saudi.
And they are supporting Assad with every means. Well, the help of the Saudi depends on the dedication from the US. If the United States said to the Saudi, provide weapons, they will. Otherwise, they wouldn't. But look at the scales of help. The Russians providing Assad with everything. Even recently, some companies from Russia declared there will be 38 airplane jets will be delivered to Assad within the next 4 months. I mean, what we have, what the Saudi and the West are giving us weapon is very light weapon. We need weapon to tackle the barrel bombs.
So just to be clear, you're not in favour of military intervention, or you are in favour of military intervention? No,
I am in favour of I am in favour of stopping the bloodshed in Syria. If you don't want to intervene, then there is another kind of intervention, which is by providing the opposition with weapon. We have the FSA who is fighting the ISIS and fighting the regime at the same time. So if the FSA not to be provided with weapon, how on earth they will stand in front of Assad, who is backed up by the Russians and Iranians?
Well, Dr. Fikri, I mean, it was precisely the kind of the FSA's strategy of trying to engage the West, which undercut it standing inside Syria and opened the door for some of the Islamist groups to gain ground, wasn't it?
Yes, I agree with you really, but I am sure that the Western will not be involved. They have all their experience, as you have just mentioned, in Afghanistan and what happened in Iraq, as well as in any different areas. Now, victory will come from the people themselves. And I would like just to highlight the matter that the Syrians themselves, the people are fighting. The people want to liberate their country from this dictator regime. I would like just to say that let the Western be fair and just. We shouldn't accuse the people in Syria to be terrorists. We shouldn't be fear about what will happen after the Assad regime fails. This is the main issue, and this is what they try to publicize all over the world. If Assad fails down, the jihadists, the extremists will come to power. I wish to say that this is wrong. The people are Syrian. The majority of the fighters are Syrian. There are only few individuals, yes, they can help because of the Islamic point of view, that those people are oppressed, they are killed. We are Muslims and we have to help our Muslim brothers, and mainly in the humanitarian aid. But the conflict is between the Syrian people who are completely oppressed for years and years, more than 250. The number is more than 250,000 to 300,000 have been killed for sure. More than 7 million now they are leaving their houses. It is a huge crisis.
Okay. Dr. Leanders, do you think that it was the fragmentation of the opposition, first between those who wanted Western help and those who didn't, and then between those who were backed by the West and those who weren't, and then among the Islamist groups themselves? Is that the key weakness here?
Well, it's certainly one of the key weaknesses. I myself think that until mid-2012 or so, there was a real window of opportunity whereby the West or outside countries could have made a significant difference by sending arms to the FSA, which at that time were still controlling large parts of the rebel-held territories. Now, after that, that didn't happen, and it didn't materialize for all sorts of reasons, unfortunately, I think. But after that, this opportunity has evaporated, and I frankly see it not happening, that the West will now, given the supremacy of all sorts of Islamist groups and the splintering of the insurgents, that the West will come forward and start supplying significant weaponry to any rebel group, and risking that these arms will end up in the wrong hands. Yes, the West, I think, and Europe, the United States, made some major mistakes in hindsight, and contributed to a situation whereby the regime, with the help of Russia and Iran, has managed to gain some significant, to give some significant blows to the insurgents. But I don't see that being reversed anymore at the moment.
Okay. Well, Dr. Leanders has put one side of the argument there, Abdulaziz. He said, you know, the West should have intervened earlier. They should have given more weapons to the FSA. And that's one argument. But there's another argument which says it was precisely the FSA's willingness to go and stand in Istanbul by the side of Hillary Clinton, which undermined its internal backing. Where do you stand on that argument?
Yes, the thing is, if I look at the beginning of the Syrian revolution, we started our revolution peacefully. We didn't want any kind of armed confrontation with Assad. But unfortunately, he pushed us. He forced us to go to Istanbul. He forced us to seek help from the international community. I mean, what's going on in Syria, it doesn't concern only Syrians. it concerns every human being because Assad is carrying out massacres against the humanity. He used even chemical weapon. So basically, we are in Syria is not in a different planet. We are there in the Middle East, and the international community, the UN Security Council has responsibilities in protecting people around the world.
Do you think they were right to go and to attend those conferences and to stand beside Hillary Clinton? Is that? Were they right or wrong?
No, the thing is, it is not about right or wrong. The thing is, did they have other options?
Well, you have the option not to go. You have the option to say, look.
And what? And let Assad killing us while we're watching.
Well,
I mean, we need it.
Well, I suppose the argument would be the Assad regime is no doubt a very evil regime for using chemical weapons.
Yes.
But to go to the head of a regime which is the only regime in the world which has used a nuclear weapon at the end of the Second World War is possibly a mistake.
Well, we didn't ask only the Americans. I mean, we asked the international community. We didn't go only to the Americans and said, okay, give us weapon. We need weapon.
I mean, come on.
No, the thing is,
everybody knows there isn't an international community, and B, there isn't one without the Americans.
Okay, what can I say if the international community is led by two wings of the imperialism, one led by Washington and the other led by Moscow?
Well, I guess.
This is the reality.
I guess the other opinion is to stay clear of them. I mean, you know, if you're worried about a thief in your own country, you don't go to the mafia and ask for help. I mean, I guess would be the argument. Well, what do you think about that?
Yes, I think this is a very good example. If there are thieves, don't go to other mafia to help you. And what I would like just to elaborate here is that we wish that the world will not conspire against the Syrian people. Leave the Syrian people do what they can do, and we are sure that victory will come to them. But the problem is that there is an international conspiracy. And Russia is not a simple country. Russia is a very strong, as well as Iran. And when the war now is involved by Iranian troops, Russian, as well as militaries from Iraq, militaries from Lebanon. So that, really, let me say it frankly, some of the extreme Shias are trying to make their empire within the Sunni world. And now they say it will turn to be a real sectarian conflict between Sunni and Shia. Of course, this was not the beginning and the start, but now Iran is putting its hands everywhere in the Arabic and Islamic world. Iran wants to get overpower, and of course this will raise a new type of conflicts. It will be raised all over the Islamic world. It will be a danger about the Sunni world, which is the majority of the Muslimin. And in this point, I would like to say that there is no one country that is supporting and backing the Syrian revolution, even Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, all of them. We all know that they are very, very strong allies to American, and they have their own issues with the Zionists of Israel. What they want and their main concern is stabilizing their own chairs and their power.
Okay. Dr. Leanders, what do you think? Are we in an end game? And if there is, if we are in an end game, how long will the end game take?
Well, difficult to say, of course, but I don't think we are at the stage of an end game yet. And in fact, I suspect that this might go on for even a couple of years still. As I said before, the regime made some military gains, but for example, it doesn't completely control the entire Homs governorate. The battle for Aleppo is still going on, and not to speak of the entire north at the border with Turkey, and the east in Deir ez-Zor and places bordering Iraq, and not even to mention the Kurdish areas in the northeast. So from a regime's perspective, there's still a lot to be done, and the battle is far from over. Moreover, you could well wonder what happens when the perceptions change within the regime camp, in the sense that there is no longer an existential threat being posed anymore by the Sunni-led, Sunni-majority insurgents. I think that might well be the recipe for some internal dissent and fragmentation within the pro-regime camp, as, for example, all sorts of quasi-state, non-state groups now supporting the regime might want to see some reward or changes in the regime, for their contribution to the current military state of affairs.
So, are you saying that the kind of the gains that the regime look as if they're making at the moment might lead to a level of internal differentiation, perhaps even conflict within it?
Yes, that's quite possible, and in fact, there are already some indications that the so-called Shabiha militias and groups associated with the so-called National Defense Forces, all paramilitary or non-state groups supporting the regime now, are already claiming some of the boots or of the gains of the advances made vis-à-vis the rebels. I think this battle is far from over, and on top of that, the rebels will continue to control significant parts of the country. So I think we're looking at a real long-term humanitarian crisis.
Okay, well, we're going to have to stop it there for this part of the programme with that assessment of the battlefield in Syria itself. But do rejoin us after the break, where we'll be looking at the forthcoming presidential elections and what that might mean for the society in Syria after the break.